Oh yeah. Jean Philippe, man.
Yes, oui.
It's great that you're here. Thanks for coming back.
Plaisir.
Et comme d'habitude, t'as amené trop de stock. Nous avons trop de sujets à aborder. Al Gore était en ville. T'étais là.
Moi j'étais à Toronto quand il était à Toronto. Parce qu'il faut dire qu'il était à deux places dans la même journée. Et ce qu'il faut savoir, c'est, je vais le dire en anglais parce que je pense que ça sonne mieux, mais do you know why Al Gore wants to save polar bears?
Why does he want to save polar bears?
Because they're white.
Oh yeah.
And that's what. Je sais en anglais. J'ai parlé en anglais ce soir.
Okay.
I think the only reason why we should fear Al Gore right now, there's a lot of racist policies being promoted these days, and especially by the people that are whether backed by or representing financial or monarchical interests in especially Great Britain, because that's the last empire that we have, which is in charge right now of the United States through whether certain individuals, but also a lot of ideas. And that's one of the things that we confront a lot more these days, the racism promoted by these people. Because when you're in charge of a colony, you got to make sure you stay in charge. And you don't just stay in charge with a lot of guns and tanks and stuff like that. You want to make sure that your subjects will actually believe that whether they are inferior, right, that the queen has, or the queen in our case, or the king, or any type of emperor will actually have a superiority, whether it's genetic or otherwise, or on the blood, blue blood, or something like that. And right now we have people like Al Gore and others that are promoting this idea of not necessarily racism, but this idea that man is very dangerous because of its economic activity, industrial activities. But the people that are aimed really are the underdeveloped nations, like in India, China, and of course Africa. And when I was in Toronto, we had a sign that we were bringing around, which was saying that environmentalism was British neo-eugenics.
British neo-eugenics.
Yeah.
Huh.
And the funny thing is that there was a lot of journalists outside that place, and some people from the Toronto Sun that covered our intervention, because of course we did a lot of singing while we were hoping to intercept Al Gore, but I guess we were a bit too naive. He didn't come out. Of course, he probably took another place. And it's fun to know, because right now Al Gore in the United States, he's doing these campus tour. And there's a contract, because he got paid, for example, to go in Arizona. He got paid $165,000 to give a series of conferences. But he says, in his contract, it says, no questions from the media, and it's funny because it's in the campus. He said no questions from the students.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and he's gonna take questions actually from the people that are sponsoring him, because there's gonna be this internal presentation by him to these guys loaded with cash, which he are bringing him for not necessarily saving the earth or saving our air or whatever, but they are there to promote an idea, which is really an idea of eugenics. And I would like to refer people to the Plato's Republic. I don't know if people don't have, and it's a big, thick book. If you don't have too much patience, you should at least go through the first two books. That's about 60 pages. It's a good thing because it's a dialogue. In the first dialogue, you see Socrates, who just beat the crap out of a guy who is named Thrasymachus, and he thinks that the justice is the law of the strongest, and he just rips the guy apart. But on the second part, you have two guys who attended the debate, and they say, well, look, Socrates, I would wish that justice is that wonderful thing that people were talking about, but I'm just having a hard time believing it. And I see all over the place that people are seeing justice as some something that which is just a social contract, you know, make sure people don't bash each other, but actually that most people wants to be unjust, right? It's like in you know, it's if and the guy takes this story, this parable, you say, yeah, where he's taking this example of a guy who finds a ring, and when you turn the ring inside, you become invisible. And the story is that the guy turned invisible and goes to kill the kills the king and steals the wife, you know, and lives happily and becomes like the super tyrant. And the guy says, you know, and people might argue with that, but he says there's no human beings in the world that would be strong enough to resist the temptation of doing something unjust like that, right? And also he mentions another problem in the Greek society, which we also see today, is that people actually would like to be unjust, and they sometimes will admire those who are unjust and manages not to get caught, or manages to pass or to look for someone just. And you have good examples like that around people like Bill Gates, you know, who's always giving $100 million to kids, blah blah, but he's making billions out of, you know, robbing, stealing people, speculating on the financial system. It's not just by selling computers. These guys are speculators, and they see big, but they also destroy, and they put people at risk, and they destroy lives by doing that. Or people like George Soros, or any type of so-called philanthropist who has lots of money. And the idea is, it's normal to be suspicious, because those fortunes right now are, right, there was some stats being published recently in the United States showing that 24% of the worldwide income is now being distributed to 1% of the population, right? And the 48% of the poor people have about the 90% of the rest of the population have about 46% of the world income, and the 10% as, you know, the rest. But we haven't seen that since 1928. So if you see someone who's filthy rich, he might be a good guy you like, you know, to play poker with or something, but there's probably something wrong he's doing. And Socrates in the book, he's kind of asked by these two guys. He said, "Look, buddy, we want to be just, but we just can't find any escape, and you're probably the only guy who can really break those guys apart, as you just did. But it's more sophisticated than that, right?" So, and right now, that's exactly it, right? You have someone like Al Gore, who, you know, people they saw Al Gore on TV and they say, "Oh yeah, Al Gore, the vice president. Yeah, that was a while ago. What the hell was he?" Well, actually, he was speculating on the financial system in Wall Street, and he's the head of a hedge fund. A hedge fund is like a mutual fund for filthy rich people who likes to have money really quickly, don't like to wait. You know, let's invest in a bridge. That's not their type. They want their money now. And he's with a guy who's from Goldman Sachs, who is an investment firm, and he's the guy's name is David Blood. And guess what's the name of their hedge fund is Blood and Gore. I'm not kidding. And you say, well, what's their problem? And of course, these are hedge funds that use enormous amount of money, millions or billions, and start speculating, start buying companies, also using a certain leverage with the banking system to borrow money, to borrow billions, and then to buy stuff with that. And the banks are a bit stupid because they count that as an asset, saying, well, when these guys are gonna, we have made that loan to people, then we're gonna get very soon. So these are assets that we count already in, which is a bit of a fallacy. But you see, so those hedge funds are right now looting the planet, and 82% of them, which is about 8,000 something out of 9,000, are in the Queen's beehive,
Oh yeah,
which is the Cayman Islands.
the Cayman Islands.
Yeah, which belongs to the British. It was officially owned by the British monarchy in the 1970s, but before it used to be to them too. They just wasn't official. And Cayman is also a symbol for anything that has to do with looting on the seas. And these are hedge funds which are supposed to be controlled, but of course it's mainly they have like this hedge fund authority system over there. But what this does is it basically gives 100 years tax exempt right for those hedge funds. So they don't pay any taxes for 100 years, and they don't have to show their numbers, which is not anywhere else in the world. You have to show what's going on in your banking in your bank account. So, and this is actually what's looting the whole world economy. These guys have an enormous power, and they looted the auto sector. They're aiming, of course, the housing bubble, and now they're because they're nice people, and they're some of them are grandfathers and they have grandsons, and they think about the future. So they're gonna invest in carbon swap. They're gonna invest in the climate stock exchange, which is the new thing promoted by Al Gore and a lot of other people as well, including Stéphane Dion here, who's using the fact that we have a minority government to push his ecology agenda, because he has the support of the population. So Harper is kind of in between, so he has to go for that too. And what that does, well, it's kind of easy to see, but if you imagine a nation that will decide to emit, let's say, a certain amount of gigaton of CO2, right? Let's say 1 million gigaton. That's not really the number, but let's pick that up for now. So you have to divide it up in different types of bonds, so people can buy those polluting bonds, polluting rights, and then they use that as a kind of an authorization to pollute. Because some companies have already started to make some technical change, but you can't stop from using energy, from using coal, from using oil. It's not that easy to do that just for a company. They need a governmental help somehow. They're going to need huge investments, which they can't do now. So they're buying these polluting rights. But to buy that, you need someone who's going to sell them. It's like an exchange. If you're a farmer and you say, okay, I'm gonna sell my polluting rights, so I'm going to produce less and sell the pollution that I should have been creating, which I haven't produced. And some big company is going to buy it and say, okay, now I can pollute. But the problem is that most companies, and especially in Europe, they're starting to do that, and now they're, they succumb to the queen's disease, because the queen likes to, she likes to promote stuff like opium, right? Like what she did in China, to get people really hooked on how cool the queen is, and to basically shut people up. And the companies are hooked on these polluting rights. They need them. So now you're now you got to see, well, where the hell am I going to buy polluting rights? And we bought them all. Say, hey, what about Africa? They got a lot of those, right? They use, for their own energy, they use oil, coal, wood, which is one of the biggest so-called CO2 pollutant in the world. It's wood burning. To say, hey, we're going to buy those polluting rights from Africa, and we're going to tell the Africans that it's good for them because they're going to be able to pay their debts with that. But if the Africans do not have those polluting rights, well, they can't pollute because they're not allowed to have any other type of energy, right? Because they might build weapons with that or something like that. So the Africans are fucked unless they start, they start again to go see the IMF or the World Bank for money, right? So it's a never-ending circle for these guys. But it's also, people know about Africa being a huge resource resource well. You can get a lot of resources from there. Now they're finding a lot more oil in Nigeria and other places as well. But in order to stop that, you see, we need two things. Because what we encounter in the street, my friends and myself, when we organize with the Larouche, so we're trying to activate people. And it's rather easy. You say, well, what the hell have you been doing the last 20 years? Nothing? Well, help us out, change the world. It goes to governments, unions, let's talk to people. Let's talk to people about a solution. But the problem is that we are right now in a cultural war. And the cultural war which was promoted by the British monarchy at the time, with people like people that were backed up by the British Crown, like Thomas Malthus, who was the chairman, so the director of the History and Economics chair at the Haileybury School of Economics, was a guy that was deployed to basically justify why the Irish people were so damn poor. And they were not poor because the Queen didn't like them, right? Because the Queen likes everybody.
Oh yeah.
But they were actually poor because they were just too many, and they were too many compared with the food quantity that they had. But this was actually also a phenomenon that you see in most poor nations, and of course nations that are British colonies. Unlike the Anglo-Saxon race that would, if you just look at them, you see how wealthy they are and how educated they are, so there can't be any problem with them. So Malthus is a guy that developed this idea of overpopulation, and his solutions were not to just say, let's help those guys, as we would say today for most people. You see someone in the street, you want to help him out. Can give him some change. It's not going to help much, but you would think of an institution that would help those people, not just day by day, but to actually bring them back in shape. But at the time, it was the idea of we gotta basically eliminate those poor, because if it grows too much, it just creates a problem. So let's reduce them, since they don't have that much importance. They're stupid, they're poor. So what do you want to do with them? So the idea was to design cities that were very narrow, and narrow streets, lack of hygiene, so that you have a constant spread of disease that feeds off this lack of hygiene. See, that more than a military intervention in Ireland, for example. And of course, then this idea that a lot of people start to believe in people like Malthus, because there's a kind of pseudoscience around it. Right, we're gonna say, well, Malthus, he's a guy well educated. He's gotta know what he's talking about, right? And this idea of overpopulation is still something you see today, and I'm having a lot of fun breaking that apart, because see, a lot of people, when they think overpopulation, they think about the poor. They think about India, China. Especially Africa, because what they do is that they look at the fertility rate. Of course, the fertility rate is a lot higher than what you have here. Here's like 1.2 or something. Over there, it can go up to 10. But if you look at the actual population density of most African nations, it's very small. There's only nations like Rwanda, Nigeria, who can actually compete with the population density of European nations. And also nations like Japan, China, and India. So, and if you just look at the United Nations stats, you can find that on Wikipedia. Just type world population or population density world, you'll get that. And you see stuff which is rather shocking in a sense, because the overpopulation, so-called, or where you have a lot more people, it's in Europe. Right? It's where the most developed people are. And when you look at places like in India or China, well, you see that, for example, in India, well, you have less people per square kilometers than in Belgium or Holland or Japan, right? So you say, well, what's really going on? And also, it's a funny thing because I found that the other day, but there are more people per square kilometers in the Cayman Islands than in China, right? So you know, who's overpopulated? You know?
Back to the Cayman Islands.
So yeah, these type of things you can play around with, but the problem is that most people believe in it. That's my big beef. I don't mind people being told that, but why don't they look it up? Why don't they start investigating by themselves what all this really means? And that's what I mean by a cultural war, because those ideas are being really spread. You know, like Al Gore was backed up, or this whole global warming thing was backed up by very impressive media coverage. The World Bank, you know, came out with this report on the economic impact of the global warming. And also you have all these so-called scientists like Hubert Reeves or David Suzuki that are also being covered and who are getting a lot of funds in order to do their little thing about, you know, like caring about nature and stuff, but which always push aside the question which Larouche is bringing back right now. Because it's true that we have avoided I think we have reduced a lot of tensions with the fact that Ahmadinejad, the Iranian president, has released those British sailors that were caught in Iran. Because I think his excuse was to say, well, it's going to be a religious holiday very soon for all the religions, so you guys should just go. But the problem is that the Russians are not, forget this idea of a drunk, you know, Russian that plays with the Kalashnikov and has a lot of fun up there in Siberia. The Russians are a very serious nation, and they don't like people to fool with them. And I don't know if you remember, it's an anecdote, but it's a very important fact. I don't know if people remember, but when in Russia you had Chechnya terrorists that took a theater. I think it was in Moscow, maybe like a year and a half ago. And there was like 700 people in there. And the thing is that what happened that they had to use a certain type of gas, which actually killed more than half the people in there. And the next day, or the same night, very early after, Putin went on television and he said, "No one is gonna bring Russia to its knees." After doing that, and he became very quickly a national hero because he defended, you know, Russia's integrity. But you can imagine people's response here. People were just screaming, you know, this guy is a killer. But these are situations where most nations would have done the same thing, or their their actions in such cases. If you look at not the police, I'd say, but I would say like the armed force here, they would have to act in the same way. You don't mess up with terrorists. You don't deal with them, right?
So that's how our government will deal with Mohawk terrorists.
Well, probably because see, in North America, you really have that. It's unfortunate, but it's still present, and it's being revived a lot by ecology.
Ecology.
Well, because see, what the Russians is trying to do right now to prevent that war, because the Russians, as I was saying, the Russians who are not they're not kids, you know, kids in the kindergarten. There's a guy named Denisov. Gonna get you. I think he's a deputy foreign minister of the Russian Federation. Yeah, deputy foreign minister. His name is Andrei Denisov, and he said recently that if there is an attack on Iran close to our borders, we'll consider that inadmissible, impermissible. Meaning that if you attack close to the border, it means an attack on us, right? And also people from the military of Russia said recently I don't have his name, but with someone from the. Oh yeah, I have his name. Former Russian Defense Ministry official, General Leonid Ivashov. The people are gonna hear a lot, but you should check these names and Leonid Ivashov. Check that out because these guys are not. I mean, they don't fool around. And what this guy said is that the USA we're preparing an attack on Iran on April the 6th, which is in 2 days. Because in 2 days it's Easter.
April the 6th, huh?
Yeah. There's some religious holiday.
Oh, that's correct.
Good Friday, yeah.
Yeah, it's Easter for both Catholics and Orthodox this weekend.
Yeah. And the freaking thing is that he even had the name for the operation, which was called Operation Bite.
Bite.
Yeah, B-I-T should be the attack. So there's still a lot of tensions, which includes players like Great Britain, who are now who are now in big fights with Iran after this hostage takeover. But you see, the best way you can do that. See, if your population is strong, they don't tolerate these type of actions like a war. They fight back, unless you convince them that actually, well, maybe there are too many people on this planet, and maybe the Iranians are just goddamn crazy, and maybe it's just in them. People should remember that not too long ago, well, if you look at World War II, a lot of Germans were actually convinced that there was some type of Hitler gene in the German population. And in 1989, check this out, the same lady who helped create the Kyoto Protocol, Margaret Thatcher, actually said when the Berlin Wall came down, right, this wall of shame came down, she said, if you let the Germans develop, you're going to have a Fourth Reich. And what she did, linked with François Mitterrand and George Bush Sr., they managed to actually use the funds which should have been used to develop Eastern Germany, which is really destroyed. They used those funds to start Desert Storm. Small world.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
That's extraordinary.
See, and this is the same lady that is actually behind the Kyoto Protocol, and and at the same time you have those people like Al Gore, saying to the Congress that the last thing he wanted to see was to see Iraqi scientists saying that Iraq did not need technology because all technologies will possibly be used for weapons of mass destruction. That's 1993 Al Gore at the Congress, as he was a senator for Tennessee, right? And so you see this idea of man or mankind not being important actually can be a rather dangerous thing, especially if it's being bombarded to you for a few, I would say a few centuries, because even at certain times in history, people would say, okay, we've reached a limit now. So 1 billion, okay, that's enough, which is too much. Or Thomas Malthus, saying that we need to put a limit on population. We need to control them. And it's still very present today, because every time Larouche and us, we're trying to bring this idea of developing the population, and not just, in Quebec, we're talking about elevating 6 billion people, So I think there's a moral necessity to do that, because we're human beings and we should help people in India or China to get out of their misery, and should stop abusing them through cheap labor. But to do this, we're going to need a certain scientific approach, right? If every Indian has an SUV, there might be some problems. But there's a way you can organize societies in order to develop each individual. But when you bring that up in the street, people will say, yeah, but what about the environment? Right? Say, hey, we have to develop, people in India, we're going to green the deserts, we're going to have them, on a magnetic levitation train, which goes faster than the TGV, right? The best technology. We're going to have more water, more potable water. We're going to develop new ways of producing food. And people look at you and they say, what about the environment? You say, well, what's your problem? What about human beings? And then there's this dichotomy. You think that both are separate, right? And every time someone says that the man is inside the biosphere, inside nature, well, it's like man has to somehow obey nature. Like he has to basically not bother her too much, right? But man, for his own survival, has to intervene, like any other animal, or even plants. Plants are using what's around them to develop and then to spread pollen or the stuff, and the bees gets in and they do the, even bees, they transform nature up to a certain extent.
And they don't want to anymore. They're rebelling. They're leaving the hives in droves, man.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, so you see that but the difference is that man is a lot stronger, because and people can see it right now, right? We can use atoms. We can actually create new resources that did not exist before, and that's not what animals can do. Animals can't get out of in space. They can't go on the moon or in Mars. There's a lot of things that we are able to do because of our creative capacity and the fact that we can actually know how things are functioning, and to many extent replace the animal kingdom in certain chores, and just also do it better. It's a beaver. Beaver is a nice animal. They have nice dams. Okay, fine, but we're the ones that can really manage this whole biosphere. The beaver is going to do whatever he can, but he's not going to be able to transform the way we will. And that asks the questions, and I would like to ask that to most people that are listening this morning, is that if you consider man as the strongest geological force actually in the universe, as far as we know, okay, if you consider that man can actually change nature and the universe far more rapidly and far more in depth than any other animal, any other living species, well, what would it mean then if you let this geological force go nuts? Because that's what we have now, right? Forget economic development now. It's not happening. It's just looting. It's destruction, whether it's human destruction or environment destruction. Because the people right now in charge of the economy, baby boomers and people like that, or oligarchs, are, well, they're not caring about the future at all. Which means people just enjoying the moment, making a buck out of the Amazon forest or whatnot. But then you have those other people that are looking at the long term, but long term in the sense of a long-term empire, and people that see actually themselves as being part of an empire and part of an Anglo-Saxon race. Not because Anglo-Saxons are more crazy than other, but because there is a British imperialist tradition. See, we gotta see that. To understand Great Britain, you gotta see that there's a imperial past, which was very nasty, which is embedded in the culture, and which affects people. Just as you're gonna have different type of tradition in other nations that will also affect people. That will affect the way that they're thinking. And so we need to kind of bring back this geological force back to reason. And it's funny because this book that's going to come out, next book of Al Gore, which is titled Assault on Reason.
Assault on Reason, huh?
Yeah, and it's going to come out in May. But people think it's a... Well, I mean, what we know about the book is what the agent of Al Gore said, and he said, which is funny, which is kind of paradoxical. He says that the book has been written because there's been too much attacks on reason in the public arena, but at the same time that people are not letting the facts guiding them, referring to, of course, this whole climate change thing. But the facts are actually not reason. The facts are facts. And the facts, like if you look, and the best example, if you look in astronomy, if you just look at facts, at actually what you see, or statistics, well, if you study a bit like we do Johannes Kepler, you see that most scientists at the time would use the same stats, but create a different type of solar system with the Earth in the middle, or the Sun in the middle, or different other schemes. Even one guy who made the Moon in the middle. And they all use the same statistics, and they use the same observations. And if you look at Mars, you see that Mars actually has a loop effect over a few weeks of observations. It will tend to, you see it going, let's say, from east to west in the sky, right? At a certain point, it'll start going back, and then go back west again. And the thing is that this idea of reason is going to be what will not just save human beings, but also save the biosphere. Because right now we're doing a lot of mistakes. I would agree with that. But is that our nature? Well, I don't think so. And people should really think about examining their own actions. Right now, what we need to do is to make sure we bring back, I would say in the coming 2 generations, we start bringing back people from India, China, the African continent, and our own underdeveloped populations here in Canada or elsewhere, back to a level of strong, well-developed human beings with a very good potential. This can be done without looting the planet, and it will be done without looting the planet because the Larouche movement has been organizing around that issue. That in economics, the real profit is human creativity, and by applying that creativity, by applying those newly made discoveries, and then changing the way societies are functioning, then you have a chance of survival. And by doing that, you also increase the potential of your human beings, and increasing also the potential relative population density, which means it can sustain more people per square kilometer. So no one is talking about a limit, and people talking about a limit are actually basing themselves on so-called facts, but which are facts which are just being used for them. You show these pictures of African all being, stuck together in in desert camp, and they're all damn hungry, and you say, well, here you go, overpopulation. So there's not much science into that. But we gotta look at these things like water desalination, which is one thing which will be required. Development of nuclear fusion, in terms of having a quasi-unlimited energy using the seawater, and also different means of transportation. Retooling the auto industry, starting building a lot more trains like this TGV, which I just saw in the newspaper, the Gazette.
In France, it's extraordinarily fast, apparently.
Yeah, we see the maglev. Maglev actually can go faster than that. It's a bit more expensive though. But these are the technologies that we're talking about using. But we're still gonna need a lot of creativity. The problem is that even if we solve the problem in the next 50 years, we're still going to be needing to solve the extra problems in the next 100 years, right? And that's why you have people mainly situated in Great Britain and also in the United States. By defect, people are looking at this idea of taking over human beings. In a sense that right now we are in a world where we have nations. Before we had, unlike a time where we had kingdoms, where human beings did not have much value, except if you were already rich and part of these certain families. And right now there is an attempt to take back the United States, because the United States represents they represent this idea of the beacon of liberty, beacon of hope, because their constitution was actually created for that purpose. The creation of the United States has always been a kind of a European conspiracy in order to get out of this monarchical system. And of course you need a place which will be kind of isolated from this whole monarchical, king, queen, stabbing in the back type of crap. And they needed a place where they could develop their industries, which we're starting to grow a little bit in certain nations in Europe, but never to the extent that they could really accomplish anything. So they went to the United States, and a lot of thinkers were deployed to break apart these ideas that man was actually a good thing, and that man was able to develop itself, and that each individual, that all human beings had the same potential. They were all equal. See, that's a legal paper in the United States. If you use that, you can actually change the world. And people with some guts did, and we're trying to do the same thing today. But people like Thomas Malthus, as I was saying, or Adam Smith, were deployed in order to prevent that from happening, and were deployed not to, Adam Smith didn't go in the United States with guns and a ship full of cannons, but he went over there with a book, and he started telling the Americans, look, buddy, you don't need technologies. You have so much field, agricultural soil. If you start doing industries, you're gonna lose hands, because industries, they just gulp your economy. They don't really help that much. And anyway, we already have that in England, so why bother? Just sell us your stuff, and we'll give you the technologies. But the technologies also represents human advancement. A nation that has its own technology and also that has the capacity to produce it is a lot more sovereign and has a lot more potential than another nation, because they can accomplish things and start growing as a civilization, as a society, right? And what I had, because we had this article that was written by Rob Ainsworth. I just had like one or two quotes by a guy named Cecil Rhodes, which people might know from the Rhodes Scholarship, that some well-behaved students might get if they're filthy intelligent and easily corruptible, in order to help the British monarchy in this idea of reinstalling the empire. And people should think about ecology in the same way. I'm going to go to that a bit more. As ecology or environmentalism as a way to redestroy human potential. But which means, because since we are a geological force in the biosphere, if you destroy mankind, if you attack mankind, you put a lot more chances. It's like you drive nuts the biggest force in your environment. That's what's happening right now. If human beings go nuts, biosphere doesn't stand a chance, right? So I get that here, because Cecil Rhodes with other people are the basis for not only stuff like eugenics, talking about the Anglo-Saxon race, right, which is better fit than any other, according to him, but also this idea of the idea that common good is not necessarily a good thing, and that people that are thinking that are actually wrong, and think they're doing something good, but they're not. And I had this little quote, because Cecil Rhodes was part of something called the Round Table, which today is represented by, it's called the Royal Institute for International Affairs, and which you have in Canada as well as the Canadian Institute for International Affairs, that will actually organize conferences on different foreign policies. Like recently, you had a conference was the end of February. It was on foreign policy, why we have to go in Afghanistan, right? And you had a bunch of speakers talking about that. And they also had a youth movement, which was funny. They were also trying to recruit young people in the process, getting a job as an ambassador or something. And these people it's basically a plot to make sure that the United States are being brought back to the British Empire. And you're going to ask me maybe, well, they don't really say it. Well, I know they don't say it. But that brings us back to the question of the Republic. The guy who's unjust does not say he's unjust, because he appears to be the most just people, right? Okay, right there. So it says, it's at the end of Cecil Rhodes' will that he put, where he's talking about creating a society in order to do what they want to do. It's a small quote, but I'll give you an idea. He says, "Why should we not form a secret society with but one object? The furtherance of the British Empire and the bringing of the whole uncivilized world under British rule, for the recovery of the United States, and for the making of the Anglo-Saxon race but one empire." Okay. And then he keeps going. He says, "Africa is still lying ready for us. It is our duty to take it. It is our duty to seize every opportunity of acquiring more territory, and we should keep this idea steadily before our eyes, that more territory simply means more of the Anglo-Saxon race, more of the best, the most human, most honorable race the world possesses." Okay? So the idea is to see, well, how does this affect today? Well, the problem with those ideas is that they're not necessarily visible. Like even someone like, if you take, for example, the guy named Jean-Marie Le Pen, who was running in France as a president almost every time. I don't know if he did it this year, if he's doing it this year, but people have seen him as a overt, like a very open Nazi, praising policies that were pretty disgusting. And the funny thing is that this guy is getting a support actually by people that are in France but that are immigrants, people from Morocco, Algeria. And you ask yourself, well, why are these guys supporting that guy? This guy, he's against immigrants. But what the guy said, what Le Pen says, he says, look, support me, otherwise you guys from Morocco just arrived, there's going to be other Moroccans coming, and they might take your job. So vote for me now. I'm going to seal the border. Right?
Oh, you mean he doesn't want to kick them out, he just wants to seal the border.
Well, it's a potential vote, right? He says, okay, I'm going to, these guys, they hate the government, so I'm going to give them a bunch of candy, and I'm going to supposedly help them. So I'm going to seal the border, and you guys will be like the last one, but you'll keep your job. So, and people like Cecil Rhodes and others today, especially people like Bertrand Russell in the 40s, are there to develop these type of ideas about men and about nations as well. Like Bertrand Russell, whose grandfather, it's interesting to know, his grandfather was the guy who was, his name was Lord John Russell. And he's the one that helped concocting the Durham Report, which was calling for the basically the killing of French Canadians in the 1820s or 30s. I forgot the time, the date. But at the same time that Papineau was very active with the Patriots, Patriot. And these people were also known as, Bertrand Russell was also known as a great philanthropist. Right, someone who has understood his responsibility as a leader and says, well, we got to stop this armed race, right, this nuclear arms race. Especially during the Cold War, right, he was using that in order to prevent the spread of nuclear energy, which was the key energy in order to develop poor nations at the time. Because people were thinking about the future, so they said, well, people in deserts in Africa or people in India, you're not going to use windmill, stuff from the 14th century. We're going to need nuclear energy because we have a lot of people, and we need a dense energy, and something which doesn't take too much resources, like the uranium, but which requires knowledge And every nations want knowledge. They want technologies. They want to be able to develop. So Bertrand Russell was basically attacking nuclear energy, and people saw it as a good thing because people were in that mindset of deindustrialization. People were not. This whole rock, drug, sex counterculture also brought a lot of ecologism and a certain hatred towards science. People had bad remembrance with Hiroshima and Nagasaki, but during the Cold War, you had a lot of propaganda to basically scare the shit out of people with this danger of a nuclear war. So you had these kids, right, having these practices, right, like once a month they would practice this nuclear weapon emergency, right, danger of nuclear bombs. So people would run under their desks,
Duck and cover.
yeah, which would actually not protect you one single bit, but would just scare the shit out of you because you would do that as a routine. So your routine was to believe you would get bombed by a nuclear bomb, which is not, this is the best way to develop paranoia and people that go crazy. So technology was not man's best friend at that time. But people forgot about Bertrand Russell's past, which is the person that called in 1946 for the bombing, for the nuclear bombing in a preemptive way of Soviet Russia, and hoping to strike first, so that then they don't have the time to retaliate. And because these people were in for world government, right? They were in to bring in this Anglo-Saxon race, and they were the same people that, I don't know if there's a quote by him here, but there's a famous quote by Bertrand Russell where he goes about these methods of controlling the so-called overpopulation. And he's basically talking about not promoting, but spreading diseases because wars are not efficient enough.
Diseases, huh?
Yeah.
Bertrand Russell was a great proponent of eugenics.
Was he? But probably.
Oh, yeah.
So, but see, you don't get out of this. It's not. People should not be as naive as to see, philanthropists all over the place. We have people that are ill-intentioned. They might look good, but their intention, you can know that. If you ask the right questions, if you're bold a little bit, you'll be able to uncover these guys. And that's a bit what we're in, and that we are into right now. Because if you look at the policies being promoted right now in terms of ecology, and this has nothing to do with economics. This is actually anti-economics, because what it requires is less of human activity. Right? They're trying to reduce so-called CO2 emissions, but they're not looking at really at what will replace that energy consumed. Right? So but that's what we're in right now. We have so many people in need worldwide, and we gotta develop a lot more. We gotta use a lot of stuff a lot more. Doesn't mean that you're in to loot, but you're in to develop. So you gotta think about all this as a responsibility as a human being, right? So I don't know if we want to break now.
Perhaps we should let the folks out there let all that information sink in.
Okay.
Because there's an awful lot of information there. But I come back to the beehive and how they don't want us to develop intellectually or creatively. They want us to be a member of that beehive, the queen on top, and drones, and worker bees. We're easier to herd around like that, a herd mentality. We're not even mammals in their estimation. We're insects. Anyway, Jean Philippe from the infamous Larouche gang. We're going to have more of his wisdom after a few pieces of music. Je suis El Topo. Vous êtes en train de recevoir une transmission du système intelligent, vivant et agissant. We'll be back almost instantly. Here is Death in June. C'est very interesting. Now, ce matin, nous avons en studio avec nous Jean Philippe. He's a member of the infamous Larouche gang. You can bump into them from time to time, on street corners, outside of universities, near metro stations. We've been discussing many things this morning because, bees have been, I've been thinking of bees an awful lot the past few weeks, months rather, since I saw The Wicker Man. And bees are revolting and leaving their hives, according to the articles that we've been getting into recently. This is terrible for the environment. Part of the cycle of nature is being disrupted because the bees are revolting against their hive and the queen, the big queen bee. And nobody knows queen bees better than a Larouche. I'm very happy to have Jean Philippe with us this morning. Comment ça va, Jean Philippe?
Ça va bien, ça va bien.
Very good for you to be here this morning. And I know you have too much shit. We have a good 35-40 minutes.
J'ai beaucoup de shit.
Oh, good. Illuminate us, Jean Philippe.
Parce que je vais juste redire 2-3 mots sur mon copain Al Gore.
Oh, Al Gore, of course.
Parce que il y a des gens qui ont eu la mauvaise idée d'attaquer le mouvement Larouche comme étant un culte d'extrême droite quand c'est pas un mouvement trotskiste ou un mouvement libertaire. Mais la question du culte, c'est bizarre parce que ce qu'on voit maintenant avec Al Gore, c'est qu'il y a vraiment un culte écologique qui se développe. Où les gens, comme l'intervention que nous on a fait au Palais des Congrès à Montréal, il y avait beaucoup d'étudiants de Concordia qui étaient là. Il y avait en tout 5000 jeunes qui étaient là. Et je sais pas, mais ça rappelait à beaucoup de mes amis ce qu'ils appelaient l'idée des rallyes de Nuremberg faites par Hitler. C'est des gens qui vraiment perdent l'esprit. Là. On était là, nous, pour intervenir, pour amener le débat qui aurait dû avoir lieu, le débat sur la science du changement climatique. Il fallait aussi amener ce que j'ai amené un peu au début sur Al Gore, puis d'autres choses que je veux dire aussi, différents renseignements sur c'est qui cet individu-là, comment il s'est développé. Et justement, on est intervenu pendant que Al Gore parlait, même qu'il y a un de nos membres qui, alors que Al Gore embarquait sur la scène, il était le voir directement pour lui donner un pamphlet du mouvement Larouche qui était intitulé en anglais Les implications dans la politique internationale de la fraude de Gore, de Gore hoax. Puis s'il met à balbutier, Larouche, je sais pas, ça fait 30 ans qu'ils sont là, je sais pas s'ils sont de gauche ou de droite. Donc il était un peu embarrassé, mais les gens dans la salle aussi étaient embarrassés parce que leur grand héros, il y avait des petits sujets de la reine dans son chemin, tu sais. C'est pas gentil. Et par la suite, lors de son discours, on est intervenu aussi, parce qu'il dit plusieurs mensonges, autant au niveau de la science qu'au niveau de l'impact des êtres humains.
Mais est-ce que tu avais le droit de lui poser des questions?
Non, c'est ça. C'est que, il n'y avait pas de période de questions. Il fallait dire... il fallait l'interpeller. C'est ce que mes amis ont fait. Parce que moi, je rappelle, moi, j'étais à Toronto. C'était la même journée où Al Gore était à Toronto le matin à 10h. Puis à 4h30, l'après-midi, il était à Montréal. Fait que j'avais des amis à Montréal. Moi, j'étais à Toronto. Et ce qui est arrivé, c'est qu'il y a eu Mike qui est intervenu. Il y a aussi mon autre ami qui est intervenu sur lui pendant qu'il parlait pour dire, poser des questions normales, dire Hey Al, qu'est-ce que tu as contre l'Afrique?
Oh yeah.
Hey Al, c'est quoi ton problème? Tu sais très bien qu'il n'y a aucune science dans ce dont tu parles. Et à certains points, il devait répondre. Surtout quand ma deuxième amie est intervenue sur Al Gore, puis il l'a traité de génocidaire. Et elle a tellement répété, puis dit de façon tellement forte qu'à un moment donné, il a dû répondre. Il dit No, I'm not. OK? Et là, mon ami a dû répéter oui, tu l'es, c'est écrit dans ton livre.
Oh yeah.
Puis j'ai donné justement une citation de ça. Mais juste pour terminer, c'est que mon point, c'est que la population maintenant, après l'événement, était vraiment fâchée. Et mes amis, qui étaient entourés de 50 personnes, de gens vraiment enragés. Pas des gens qui voulaient discuter de science, là. Vraiment des gens qui étaient très idéologiques. Et il y avait un problème, je pense. Et ça, c'est des problèmes qu'on ne veut pas voir dans une masse de gens. Mais les gens sont en train de se laisser courtiser par un raciste. Et c'est ça que je vais montrer aujourd'hui avec certains faits. Puis une citation de Al Gore que j'ai dans un des documents que vous pouvez avoir sur Internet. Je vais juste le plugger vite. Si vous allez sur le site larouchepub.com, larouchepub.com, un article qui s'appelle The New Eugenics, Al Gore's Green Genocide.
Eugenics.
Ouais.
That word coming up again. Eugenics. This has been around for a long time.
Ouais. C'est l'eugénisme, c'est ça qui a dû l'eugénisme a dû se déguiser derrière l'idée d'environnementalisme, que j'ai expliqué un peu tantôt avec l'idée de surpopulation. Tu vas blâmer les problèmes écologiques sur une surpopulation, généralement des gens pauvres. Mais c'est les mêmes conclusions qui arrivent, parce que la question arrive toujours de dire, qui va-t-on éliminer? Est-ce qu'on va se débarrasser des Allemands ou des gens qui se reproduisent, les gens en Afrique, en Inde, etc. Alright. La première chose, c'est que il faut voir un peu comment Al Gore a développé est devenu ce qu'il est devenu. Devenu sénateur et candidat à la présidence, vice-président. Puis une des choses très importantes, c'est que Al Gore, il vient du Tennessee.
Tennessee, hein?
Ouais. Qui est un État qui est dans le sud et qui, comme vous connaissez un peu le sud, il y a toujours des problèmes en termes de racisme. Et Al Gore, c'est un gars qui a été utilisé dans les années 70 en tant que journaliste d'un journal privé à, dans le fond, exposer plutôt pas d'exposer, mais plutôt d'intimider les dirigeants les dirigeants politiques noirs. Parce que vous êtes à l'époque où on se sort un peu du racisme avec justement l'adoption du Voting Rights Act aux États-Unis, qui a permis justement l'accroissement des libertés, permis aux gens de couleur de voter, et où les partis politiques étaient des institutions gouvernementales, c'était pas des clubs privés, là. Les gens peuvent s'inscrire et dire ce qu'ils ont à dire, contrairement à plusieurs partis ici. Donc Al Gore, qui était à l'époque, faisait partie de ces gens qui essayaient dans le fond, d'intimider les politiciens noirs dans le but de décourager la population noire. Puis aussi que tu avais l'idée justement eugéniste de dire que les Noirs sont moins bons, sont intellectuellement puis socialement incapables de gouverner des institutions politiques. C'est ce qu'il disait à l'époque. C'était, j'ai même la citation, ça vient de la Cour fédérale d'Atlanta, qui disait
Atlanta, Georgia, home of Coca-Cola.
Ouais, c'était une citation faite par le FBI Special Agent Hirsch Friedman, puis il dit: The purpose of this policy, qui est une politique du FBI, was the routine investigation without probable cause of prominent elected and appointed black officials in major metropolitan areas throughout the United States. I learned from my conversation with special agents of the FBI that the basis for this policy was the assumption by the FBI that black officials were intellectually and socially incapable of governing major governmental organizations and institutions. Donc, tu avais ce genre de coups-là qui se préparaient, c'est-à-dire, comme Al Gore a fait, c'est-à-dire que tu vas intimider, tu vas essayer de corrompre des politiciens noirs. Puis ce qu'il a fait, lui, c'est qu'il s'en est pris un gars qui s'appelait M. Haddox, qui était Morris Haddox, qui était un conseiller de ville à Nashville, était au conseil de ville à Nashville, noir, et qui avait juré, quand il avait été amené au conseil de la ville, de se débarrasser de la corruption dans la police de Nashville, qui laissait justement le dope dealing, qui laissait la vente de drogue librement dans les rues, la prostitution aussi, et qui dirigeait une partie de ça. C'est dans les années en 1974, où Haddox a déclaré ça. Et Gore, avec d'autres gens du FBI, sont arrangés pour corrompre, pour offrir des faux pots de vin à Haddox. Fait que là, ce qui est arrivé, Haddox s'est fait prendre le pot de vin, et là, il y a eu tout un scandale. M. Haddox était accusé d'avoir justement pris des pots de vin. Il était heureusement acquitté à la fin parce qu'on a découvert ce qui s'était passé. Et des gens comme Gore qui ont été publiquement attaqués à ce moment-là, parce qu'il faisait partie des gens qui avaient, au fond, payé un type pour lui accrocher un micro, puis aller dans le bureau de Haddox, qui avait fait un article par la suite là-dessus, dans un journal de Tennessee. Et vous voyez, donc Al Gore, il part directement impliqué dans des politiques racistes basées sur des conceptions eugénistes de la société. Et puis justement, il y a des... à partir de là, il faut se poser vraiment la question, comment lui voit la population noire? Comment lui voit l'être humain? Parce qu'Al Gore, c'est aussi un gars qui s'est fait coincer en 93, qui avait dans le fond supporté les compagnies pharmaceutiques contre l'Afrique du Sud. Un moment où l'Afrique du Sud voulait développer des médicaments génériques contre le sida. Al Gore, il avait pas seulement dit qu'il était pour les pharmacies. Il l'a dit quand il était en visite en Afrique du Sud. Il l'a dit dans une conférence avec le président Thabo Mbeki, président de l'Afrique du Sud. Donc il a vu ça directement. Il a dit, on ne va pas vous laisser, vous devez passer par les règles, vous ne devez pas développer vos propres génériques, alors que justement ces génériques-là sont impayables. C'est juste trop cher pour la population là-bas. Et ça, vous voyez, ça c'était le vice-président américain, là, Al Gore, qui sort ça juste comme ça. Puis si vous regardez ce qu'il dit encore, enfin, il y avait une citation ou deux qui viennent. Il y en a une qui vient de son livre Earth in the Balance. Peut-être des gens ont lu.
Earth in the Balance. That's probably an Oprah Winfrey pick of the week. Yeah.
Ben sûrement, parce que tu sais que Al Gore, ça se peut qu'il gagne un prix Nobel. Il est soliste pour les prix Nobel, puis on n'a pas entendu parler même pendant qu'il était vice-président, on n'entendait presque pas parler. Ok, fait que j'ai une citation qui vous dit un peu ce qu'il pense de l'Afrique, puis il y en a un autre qui va vous dire un peu ce qu'il pense des êtres humains. Je pense qu'avec ça, qu'on peut commencer à clore le débat sur Al Gore. Il y a encore beaucoup de détails. Les gens peuvent trouver ça par eux-mêmes sur Internet. Mais il y a une autre chose un peu plus compromettante, c'est que nous, on a rencontré beaucoup de gens aujourd'hui, dans les jours récents, qui connaissaient un peu ce dont je parle sur Al Gore. Qui au moins savaient qu'il s'en était pris à l'Afrique du Sud à ce moment-là, et qui était assez pour décourager des gens, mais quand même les gens restaient stickés sur l'idée que Al Gore fait une bonne chose parce qu'il parle d'écologie. Mais ça, c'est ça qu'on appelle jeter de la poudre aux yeux aux gens. C'est ça qu'on appelle passer pour un juste alors qu'on est complètement injuste. Si quelqu'un planifie un génocide chez vous, mais qui recycle ses cannes de conserve, c'est quand même une grosse différence, là.
Yeah.
Ouais. Bon, fait Al Gore sur l'Afrique. OK. Puis rappelez-vous un peu ce qu'on disait au début sur la surpopulation de l'Afrique, comme quoi c'est un mythe. Il y a plus de gens en Europe encore. Bon, fait qu'il dit, ça c'est dans son livre Earth in the Balance. Fait qu'il dit, The countries of Africa, je vais peut-être le traduire. Ouais, les pays de l'Afrique ont déjà beaucoup de poids, beaucoup de pression à cause du manque de ressources naturelles et qui menace aussi l'intégrité des systèmes écologiques. Donc, c'est vraiment effrayant d'imaginer l'impact d'un doublement ou d'un triplement de la population, sans mentionner la très piètre qualité de vie que ces extra individus vont devoir prévoir. Déjà, il dit, déjà de nouvelles épidémies comme du choléra au sida ont émergé dans des sociétés dans une société qui est hors balance, par une croissante population rapide et la conséquente déroute des traditions de vie et la dégradation des environnements, de l'environnement dans les alentours. Tu vois, la croissante population accroît le nombre de maladies. C'est un lien pas mal rapide, là, tu sais. Et aussi l'idée que, justement, l'environnement puis le mode de vie habituel sont complètement changés. Tu vois, c'est pourquoi est-ce qu'il faudrait nécessairement penser que les extra-personnes vont avoir une piètre qualité de vie? Parce que c'est ça un peu le paradoxe. Si on veut que la population croît de façon soutenable, ça prend un très bon niveau de vie, ça prend des technologies. Mais ce qui se passe maintenant, c'est que oui, vous avez un très haut taux de natalité, mais les gens sont dans des conditions où ils vivent très, très longtemps ou très peu. Il y a des nations comme des gens en Russie où on parle de dépopulation, une croissance négative à chaque année. Parce que si vous avez un continent comme l'Afrique qui est complètement détruit, ben, la population ne croît pas, elle chute. Okay. Et l'autre citation, alors qu'il s'est fait demander, j'imagine que c'est dans une entrevue, et ça va donner un peu l'idée de ce qu'il pense de l'être humain. Donc, il y a quelqu'un qui avait posé la question à Al Gore, il dit, selon vous, combien vaut la vie humaine? Question. Puis Al Gore, il a répondu 2 arbres. Il dit 2 arbres. Puis là, il va expliquer pourquoi. Il dit, l'arbre, il y a un arbre qui s'appelle Pacific Yew. Cet arbre-là peut être coupé et transformé de façon à produire un produit chimique qui s'appelle le Taxol, qui offrirait des chances ou des promesses de guérir certaines formes de cancer. Donc, cancer du poumon, cancer du sein, cancer des ovaires, chez des patients qui, généralement, meurent rapidement. Okay. Puis là, il continue, il dit, ça semble un choix facile à faire, sacrifier un arbre pour un être humain, jusqu'à ce qu'on apprenne que ça prend 3 arbres pour guérir chaque patient. Maintenant, on se pose des questions, on est confronté avec des questions difficiles. Combien importants sont les besoins médicaux pour les générations futures? Pourquoi est-ce que les gens vivant aujourd'hui auraient le droit de couper tous les arbres pour étendre, pour accroître la vie de certains d'entre nous? Alors, et même si ça signifie qu'il faudrait couper une forme de vie jusqu'à ce qu'elle disparaisse à tout jamais, et nous rendant impossible de guérir des vies dans le futur. Donc là, il y a un débat à faire déchirant selon Al Gore, c'est de dire il faut que tu choisisses entre 2 arbres ou un être humain. Mais moi, je dirais que malheureusement, il y a beaucoup de gens qui en sont rendus là. Ils sont tellement attaqués d'idées écologiques que ils peuvent faire s'enchaîner un arbre pour le protéger des scies, mais dès qu'on leur parle de pauvreté environnante, ben là, c'est la pauvreté, là, ça devient un mode de vie. C'est eux qui ont choisi. Puis aussi, ben, ce qu'il est en train de dire, c'est que il y a vraiment des gens qui ne comprennent pas la question d'économie humaine. Parce que si tu décides, par exemple, de couper des arbres pour faire un médicament, pour guérir un cancer, pas le rhume, là, le cancer. On parle des pires saloperies que tout le monde voudrait bien se débarrasser. Donc, si un arbre qui permet ça, ben c'est sûr que tu veux étudier comment l'arbre fonctionne. Tu n'es pas obligé de tout couper les arbres et de ne plus jamais en avoir. C'est une vision très simpliste. C'est pas parce qu'il y a un médicament dans l'arbre qu'il faut juste que tu utilises l'arbre, tu veux le produire toi-même. C'est pour ça que ça sert des compagnies pharmaceutiques. Il y a personne qui va juste couper un arbre et dire ben là on n'en a plus, et là ben, on ne pourra plus sauver les populations dans le futur. Il y a un manque de logique à ce niveau-là. Mais le problème, c'est que tu es en train d'équivaloir une vie humaine avec 2 arbres. Et de dire que c'est une question difficile à résoudre, lequel on va se débarrasser. Vous voyez, les gens devraient se rappeler, dans les cours de philo, il y a un jeu que beaucoup de gens font. Puis moi, je me rappelle, je l'ai fait au cégep, mon 3e cours de philo. Et c'est le fameux test où on te donne 6 naufragés, une grand-mère, un manchot, quelqu'un qui manque un bras, un obèse, un enfant de 2 ans, puis un chien. Puis là, on dit, mais l'île ne contient juste assez de nourriture que seulement pour tous ces gens-là, moins un. Il faut que tu t'en débarrasses d'un. Lequel? Et là, tu avais les tables de discussion philosophique. Mon Dieu, j'ai pas le cœur de me débarrasser de la vieille madame. Puis tu avais quelqu'un qui disait, écoute, l'enfant, qu'est-ce que tu veux faire avec ça? Tu vois, là, la vie humaine devient un jeu. On dit, dans le fond, tu te poses la question, une question qui est complètement inutile, à savoir, quel individu est le moins important? Parce qu'on a une tarte fixe, supposément. On a des ressources qui sont fixes, donc on dit, il faut se débarrasser de quelqu'un, lesquels? Et c'est là où des gens vont dire, les pauvres. Les pauvres, ils sont tous malades, ou les vieux. On se débarrasse de quelqu'un. Et ça, c'est le genre de truc que beaucoup de gens on se fait nourrir de ce genre de choses-là. Parce qu'il y a beaucoup de ces citations-là d'Al Gore qui, pour moi, c'est vraiment mongol, mais il y a souvent des gens qui sont en partie d'accord avec ça. Et ça, c'est le problème maintenant. C'est comme un paradoxe. C'est-à-dire, les écologistes ne s'intéressent pas aux êtres humains, mais si on ne s'intéresse pas aux êtres humains, si on les laisse niaiser, si on les laisse dériver, ils vont détruire tout ce qui est autour d'eux, parce que c'est une des forces géologiques les plus importantes. Donc, les gens qui connaissent la biosphère, il faut qu'ils connaissent l'activité humaine dans ce cas-là d'intrinsèque. C'est-à-dire, quelle est la différence entre un être humain puis un animal? Oui. Parce que, vous voyez, ce qui est intéressant maintenant, c'est qu'il y a beaucoup plus de débats sur cette question-là. Parce que Al Gore, maintenant, est exposé. Il est exposé dans deux très grands médias allemands et aussi à la BBC. La BBC a produit un rapport sur dans le fond, ce qu'il appelle la fraude du changement climatique. C'est un très, très bon documentaire que les gens peuvent avoir sur youtube.com. Vous avez juste à taper Global Warming Swindle dans le centre de recherche, puis aussi une version sous-titrée en français. Aussi dans plusieurs publications au Danemark, Al Gore a été exposé comme étant une fraude et beaucoup attaqué pour ce qu'il est en train de faire maintenant. Pas juste des taquinages sur le fait que Al Gore consomme beaucoup, mais vraiment l'idée que ce gars-là est une fraude. Et il y a même un scientifique du nom de Lord Monckton. Quelqu'un qui fait partie de l'essaim d'abeilles, de l'essaim de la reine, mais il y a une révolte en Angleterre, et c'est tant mieux. C'est-à-dire qu'il y a des gens comme ça qui sortent pour attaquer Kyoto, attaquer Al Gore. Et Lord Monckton, lui, cherche un débat. Lui, ce qu'il veut faire, c'est un débat avec Al Gore, parce que Lord Monckton a produit récemment un rapport de 40 pages qui s'intitule, c'est un titre en anglais, mais en français, ça fait « Apocalypse annulé ». Donc, « Apocalypse cancelled ». Ça, c'est le titre du rapport de Monckton. Puis, ce gars-là, c'est en train de dire que c'est une vraie fraude, même qu'en 2005, checkez bien ça, en 2005, la Chambre des Lords en Angleterre avait demandé un rapport qui s'intitulait « The Economics of Climate Change », donc l'économie des changements climatiques. Et ce rapport-là, la conclusion, c'était qu'il fallait mettre un terme à Kyoto. Parce que ce qu'il avait révélé, c'est qu'il y avait justement un énorme manque au niveau de la science, un énorme manque de décorum scientifique, et que le protocole était avant tout un acte politique. Il y avait des intentions derrière ça qui étaient autres que de vraiment avoir une recherche sur la scientifique, à savoir qu'est-ce que c'est que tout ça. C'est pour ça que Lord Monckton demande un débat, et là on enquête au mouvement Larouche pour savoir qui exactement est derrière tout ça. Qu'est-ce qui fait que ces gens-là ont sorti maintenant de façon si forte? Parce qu'en utilisant la BBC c'est un poste de télévision qui appartient au service d'enseignement anglais. Donc c'est pas comme la CBC ici, là. Donc c'est pas des groupes, c'est pas une télévision à Télé-Québec, là. C'est très gros, c'est très, très puissant. Et aussi, Lord Moncton, il parle de ces... il attaque ce qu'il appelle le principe de précaution des environnementalistes, qui disent toujours, pour des questions de précaution, ne développons pas telle technologie, ou we never know. Il y a toujours un doute, qu'on ne peut pas faire grand-chose. Et ce que Moncton fait, c'est qu'il prend l'exemple du DDT, qui était le fameux insecticide, pesticide qui avait justement sauvé des millions de vies contre la malaria en Afrique, puis qui était utilisé de façon constante, que ce soit dans le militaire. Les militaires eux-mêmes étaient aspergés de DDT pour différentes missions dans des endroits humides. Vous avez au nord, aussi au nord canadien, les gens ne pensent pas, mais quand ça dégèle dans le nord, il y a des maringouins qui sont pas mal gros et qui sont pas mal nombreux. Le territoire du nord-ouest, c'est infesté, et jusque dans les années 70, les gens devaient asperger avec du DDT, sinon c'était invivable. Justement, ils ont d'énormes problèmes aujourd'hui avec ça. Et là, ça a été banni, le DDT, dans les années 70. Puis le World Health Organization, l'Organisation mondiale de la santé, s'est mis d'accord pour réutiliser le DDT pour asperger l'intérieur des maisons dans des endroits à risque de la malaria. Et ça, c'est un méchant renversement. Si vous allez au campus McDonald, campus de McGill, à Sainte-Anne-de-Bellevue, parlez du DDT pour le fun aux professeurs. Dites-leur, hey, le DDT is back. Je vous jure, il y en a un de la gang qui va donner un coup de poing. Ouais, parce qu'il y a beaucoup des gens qui étudient en épidémiologie, en géographie, donc des gens impliqués dans la question de gérance de la biosphère. Et nous, ce qu'on a fait à un moment donné, c'est on était là-bas, puis on avait amené un magazine dans lequel il y avait un article qui s'appelait Bring Back DDT, qui datait des années en 99, je pense, qu'on avait écrit ça, pour justement se débarrasser de la malaria, entre autres. Et je vous jure que là-bas, dans ce campus-là, il y a vraiment une mafia anti-DDT. Toute la propagande qui était faite dans les années 76, je ne sais pas si McGill a participé, mais eux, ils parlent de tout ça, comme quoi ça détruisait la faune, la flore, et tout ça. Et qui était, à l'époque, je ne sais pas si les gens les ont vus, mais le dirigeant de l'EPA, Environmental Protection Agency, à l'époque, avait même pas assisté à la conclusion du rapport de l'enquête sur le DDT. Puis le rapport, c'est pas des niaiseries, mais le rapport, il conclut en disant qu'on n'a pas besoin de bannir le DDT. Le gars, il dit, I ban it anyway, tu sais, parce qu'il a été demandé de détruire la population africaine, parce que c'est des politiques britanniques. Fait que il y a ce gars-là, Moncton, qui a demandé un débat avec Al Gore. Puis nous aussi, maintenant, on cherche un débat. Nos membres du mouvement Larouche à Los Angeles qui vont avoir un débat avec le Parti démocrate de Los Angeles, de la région de Los Angeles aux États-Unis, sur la question de Al Gore et le changement climatique. Puis nous, on va essayer de faire la même chose, peut-être à Concordia ou ailleurs, mais à Concordia, je pense que serait le meilleur endroit. C'est là où il y a beaucoup de... On essaie d'enquêter pour voir qu'est-ce qui se passe là-bas exactement, en termes des réseaux là, avec toute cette histoire autour de Al Gore et l'environnementalisme. Qu'on veut débattre les gens sur cette question-là, sur l'intention politique et aussi la science de ce réchauffement climatique-là, ou tout simplement de l'environnementalisme qui est présent maintenant. Parce que vous voyez, c'est... il y a... Donc, Al Gore, il ne devrait pas y rester trop longtemps à vivre. Déjà, les gens aux États-Unis commencent à avoir beaucoup de doutes sur cette question-là, parce que ça exige les changements économiques proposés par Al Gore sont énormes. Ça ne fait pas plaisir à beaucoup de gens. Les Américains, c'est pas une population qui était aussi brainwashée sur le changement climatique que, mettons, au Canada. Où ici, ça fesse pas mal fort. Fait que l'idée, c'est que si vous avez des gens comme Al Gore qui sont tolérés en politique, ça démontre vraiment que la population a un problème. Le fait de voir des gens aussi racistes, promouvoir des politiques écologiques, puis entendre des gens dire « Ah ben, c'est correct parce qu'au moins ils parlent d'écologie », ben je m'excuse, c'est se faire arnaquer, là. C'est vraiment se faire mentir, puis c'est en redemander, là. Okay? Et c'est pour ça qu'il faut vraiment axer sur la science. La science dans le sens de comment est-ce qu'on connaît les choses. Comment est-ce qu'on arrive à investiguer la nature, puis à découvrir comment elle fonctionne, puis arriver à remplacer le rôle des animaux ou de remplir un rôle qu'eux ne peuvent pas remplir. Il y a des gens qui me parlaient de dire qu'on manquait de requins en Australie et dans d'autres endroits, qu'on avait trop tué de requins, parce que les requins mangeaient un certain type de poisson, qui est un poisson que s'il se reproduit trop, il va en avoir trop et ça va détruire l'écosystème. Donc le requin avait un principe régulateur. Je dis, ben, je m'excuse, mais si je veux remplacer le travail du requin, ça me prend un bateau, puis 3 gars, puis un filet. Là. Et le tour est joué. Puis même qu'on peut faire le travail encore plus rapide que le requin. Mais moi, je pense pas que c'est ça l'importance nécessairement d'un requin. Il doit y avoir autre chose que juste dire, ben, il fait une espèce de cleaning dans la biosphère. Donc c'est pour ça qu'il faut regarder la question de science. Puis une des choses que les abeilles font, c'est-à-dire, c'est correct d'être une abeille, mais c'est plus débile pour un être humain d'imiter une abeille. Ouais? Et l'abeille, ce qu'elle fait de bien, ce qu'elle fait d'intriguant, c'est que quand vous allez dans une ruche, puis vous gardez l'essaim, vous allez voir que les fameuses beehives, vous allez voir, c'est des hexagones. Puis l'abeille, elle fait toujours des hexagones. Elle ne fait jamais de carrés ou de cercles. C'est important de se demander pourquoi, parce que c'est pas évident, tu sais. Tu te dis pourquoi elle fait toujours un hexagone. Comment elle arrive à toujours faire ça. Puis c'est là où on voit un certain principe harmonique dans la nature. C'est-à-dire que l'hexagone, si vous faites un essaim, ça va être la figure qui va vous permettre, dans le fond, vous avez une figure qui va s'emboîter les unes dans les autres. Contrairement à un cercle, où un cercle, on laisse de l'espace entre les cercles, ou un octogone, un décagone, des formes à 10, 12, 20, 30 côtés, qui ne vont jamais s'emboîter. Ce qui fait que, quand l'abeille fait sa ruche, elle veut faire quelque chose de solide. Fait qu'elle va utiliser l'hexagone, où les pièces s'emboîtent ensemble. Ouais. Et aussi, l'hexagone, c'est-à-dire, représente la figure qui va englober le plus d'air et qui va avoir le plus grand espace pour un périmètre donné. C'est-à-dire que si vous utilisez du matériel, mettons le matériel que l'abeille utilise, puis vous faites un essaim, une espèce de petit contenant en forme cubique, mettons avec 4 côtés, en utilisant le même matériel, vous pouvez en faire un qui a 6 côtés, puis qui va englober une plus grande surface. Donc plus d'espace pour l'abeille ou pour le miel. Donc ça, c'est ce qu'on appelle un principe de moindre action. C'est-à-dire quand vous accomplissez quelque chose, vous le faites d'une façon à ce que ça prenne le moins d'énergie. Puis l'abeille, mais comme elle n'a pas le temps de niaiser, il faut qu'elle ramasse ses produits, puis elle ne veut pas en perdre. Donc elle doit utiliser la figure la plus efficace. Ouais. Comme si vous essayez, par exemple, d'englober le plus grand air possible sur une surface donnée, ça va être le cercle. Si vous prenez une ficelle en forme de cercle, vous allez voir, votre forme la plus grande va être un cercle, pas un carré ou un triangle ou une autre forme. Et il y a d'autres exemples comme ça dans la nature qui posent la question à voir comment la nature agit. Pourquoi les flocons de neige ont toujours 6 branches. Ou pourquoi, par exemple, pas les coccinelles, mais les coquillages ont toujours une même forme qui est autosimilaire. Comment une espèce de larve arrive à faire pareil objet, qui est excessivement proportionnel, qui a une croissance continue comme ça, qui est vraiment exceptionnel. Ou pourquoi les plantes ont, pour la plupart des plantes, la majorité des plantes, ils ont 5 pétales. Et là, on vient vers des gens comme Léonard de Vinci, qui ont fait ce genre d'études-là, qui ont étudié le corps humain pour voir les proportions. Comment le corps humain était façonné et qu'est-ce qui faisait que, par exemple, il y avait certaines proportions au niveau des bras, au niveau des jambes, qui étaient respectées dans chaque être humain, puis aussi dans différents processus vivants. Et il y a des gens, il y a des vrais écologistes qui se sont posés la question. Des gens comme Vladimir Vernadsky, qui est un bio-géochimiste russe, et qui a regardé l'être humain d'une même façon proportionnelle. On va dire, quel est vraiment le rôle de l'être humain? Quel est son rôle dans la biosphère qu'on a là? Et il y a un rôle qui est identifié par Vernadsky, qui est un rôle vraiment d'amélioration de la biosphère. Parce qu'on a cette capacité de connaître. On sait, en étant sur la Terre, on est capable de savoir comment le système solaire fonctionne, en regardant des choses qui font vraiment pas de sens. Et le mouvement Larouche, on a travaillé sur un gars qui s'appelle Johann Kepler, qui rentre beaucoup là-dedans, au niveau de l'astronomie, au niveau justement de comment le système solaire est conçu. Et c'est quelque chose de vraiment beau d'être capable de faire une découverte et de montrer cette découverte-là. Et le problème avec l'écologie, c'est que le côté humain est complètement disparaît. L'idée de créativité, l'idée de résoudre des problèmes n'existe pas. C'est pour ça qu'on en arrive à une situation où les gens, on leur parle de sauver la population mondiale de la pauvreté, puis on nous parle de sauver les ours polaires. Puis comme je disais au début, Al Gore, la seule raison pour laquelle il veut sauver des ours polaires, c'est parce qu'ils sont blancs. C'est tout. Donc voilà un peu ce que j'avais à dire.
You know, and as usual, you know, there's even more to get into. You've opened up a few more gateways. The polar bear and white. We discussed it before, how Eldridge Cleaver, former leader of the Black Panther movement in the United States, is now a born-again Christian and a Republican. I think he's dead now, actually, but at some point, I guess in the 70s or 80s, probably the 80s, he converted. And people used to ask him, why is it that you don't go for the Democrats? I thought the Republicans were the racist ones. And he said, no, the roots of racism in the Democratic Party are deep. If you go back to the Deep South, many people forget this. And also, eugenics is never taught as a part of history or any sort of a social movement. So people, as usual, can't make any sort of connection between these various movements: white supremacy, eugenics, Nazism. We have to get into it more. You're going to come back very soon.
On va planifier ça.
Are you willing?
Oh, oui, pas de problème.
You seem willing. That was Jean Philippe. He's a representative from the infamous Larouche gang, and he's going to be back.